Hello and welcome to the vlog. It's Pete here again, and today we're going to be using this wonderful material. This is Bubbalux from a company called Craftex. It's fantastic. It's a plastic, but it's a foam board. So although it's quite dense, quite thick, it's very malleable. You can bend it with heat, you can die cut it beautifully, and you can emboss it as well. Fantastic product. I urge you to get some of this, especially if you're into mixed media and so on and so forth. Now, what I'll do is I'll take my die. This is heart number 3. And you can see this Bubbalux here. It's very, very thick. We're going to place that over the heart, sandwich it between my 2 cutting plates, and I'm going to use my fold away machine today. So we'll bring down those arms there and slide it into the machine. And even though this is a very thick material, it goes through so smoothly, cuts so cleanly, absolutely gorgeous. And there is my heart, and you can see that it rounds the edges off as well. If the edges are sharp, if you don't want a sharp edge, you can sand this, you can file it down. Fantastic material, really, really versatile. So let's take the machine out of the way just for a second. Now, what I want to do with this heart is I want to make it look rusty, and then I'm going to chip away at it. So all will be revealed. I know it's a bit mysterious at this point in time. I'm going to bring in my craft mat, and I'm going to be using some of these lovely media acrylics, fluid acrylics from Decoart. That's what's going to give my lovely rusty effect. So I'll get all my colours here, and I'm going to apply these with a piece of natural sponge. You can use any sponge you want really, but we'll start off with, let me see, English red oxide. This is that really lovely red rusty colour. And I'll put a little blob on my mat, and we'll take the sponge. Now, because this is not like, say, mount board or similar materials, you don't have to prime it first. So you don't have to apply gesso to it. You can work directly onto it. It does come in different colours. This obviously is the black one. It comes in white, it comes in yellow, it comes in green, blue, many, many, many different colours. So go to the website and check that out. Now, that's my red oxide. Next up, we'll take a lighter colour. This is raw sienna. Put a little blob there. Start going over the top, just like that. Okay, that's nice there. Just adds a little bit of contrast, makes it look more realistic. Finally, I'm going to use some yellow oxide. This is a much lighter colour. If you want more grey or dark patches, you can go in with Payne's grey or even black or something like that. But I'm sure you'll agree it's a wonderful effect already. There. So there's my heart. All dry, lovely rust effect going on there. This is where the magic comes in, because I'm going to paint over the top of this and then chip it away. Now, to get a really realistic effect, I'm going to use hair wax. Well, it's not wax really, it's called hair clay. It's what us fellas use to keep what little hair we have left in place. So I'm going to take some of that. This is a piece of Bubbalux as well that I'm using just to apply it. And I'm going to put it around the edges. And where this sits, it's going to act as a resist. So obviously we can paint over the top of it, but well, you'll see later on. This is a technique which, as it says on the blog, I borrowed from my good friend Andy Skinner. I saw him doing something similar to get a chipped tin effect, and I'll show you some examples of that later. But I hope I'm doing it justice, Andy, if you happen to be watching this. So there we are. We just get that round the edges, a little bit in the center as well. That's good. Now, That's all ready to go. I can paint on top of that. I'll put my hair clay to one side, and I'll take, this is Americana acrylic, and the color that I'm using today is called Coral. So we'll put a good glob of that on there, because you want this to go on quite thick, but not too thick, which is why I'm just going to add a little bit of water. I'm going to spritz that in there, just thins it down slightly. And we'll mix that. Now I'm using a fan brush. Obviously this is used usually for watercolors, but I just find it's perfect for this technique, because if you use a brush with stiff bristles, it can interfere with the clay. So I just want to apply that gently and delicately over there. It doesn't need to be perfect. So just turn that around, a little bit more on this side. Get a good, because this is a mixed media project, really, it doesn't need to be completely flat. It's not yet like you're painting a lovely piece of furniture. There we are. We'll drag the paint across like so, and that's ready to go. Okay, here we are, back with our fold away machine, and this time we're using this lovely die. This is called Whoosh. What a wonderful name for a die. And I'm going to place that onto some stencil film. This is Sizzix stencil film. And if you do like to cut stencils, maybe you'll use paper or card, it doesn't really matter, but stencil film, the great thing about it is it's not as absorbent as paper. So if you're using paints, if you're using acrylics, if you're using inks, they just slide across the surface. It's lovely stuff to work with. And because it's more dense than standard paper, it does give you a lovely crisp edge. So there's my stars. Isn't that gorgeous? Now, we'll put that to one side, and I shall bring in my, just take that out of the way, bring in my heart. Now that's it, it's dry, ready to go, and I want to get some stars going across the heart. So I'm just going to take this off camera now, and I'm going to use some spray adhesive. So I know you can't see this, but I've got a little box, and I'm just applying just a touch of adhesive to there, just so that it creates a nice seal around these stars. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm just going to use fingertip pressure just to pop that in place. And we're going to bring in two colours, light buttermilk and taffy cream. And I want to put a little bit of each onto my craft mat. And some of the light buttermilk. That should be enough. And I'll take my sponge, which I used a little earlier, just squeeze that out. Now I'm going to use this to apply. You could use tissue, you use kitchen paper, it's entirely up to you, but I'm going to apply it with the sponge today. So I'm just going lightly over those stars like so, and I'll take some of the buttermilk as well and just get in different places. It just gives me a bit of variation. There we are. Now that's done, and it's going to be imperfect, but that's what I want. That's exactly what I want. Imperfection is perfect. In my book, there we are, fantastic. So the stars have now dried, and I'm going to take some StazOn Dove Grey. I don't want to use black. Black's a bit too strong, a bit too unforgiving. And I'm going to take a few of these lovely stamps, and I'm going to add some detail. It's coming in from the side there. You can see it's quite subtle. It's not in your face, as they say. So we get this splatter going on, bring that along there like that, and finally we'll get some text across the top, maybe there, and a bit more up the side here. Now, that's all going to sit back in a second. We are going to do some other things to this heart, but I'll put those to one side, and I'll take just tissue, whatever you want, kitchen paper, it's entirely up to you. Now remember, those areas where I used the hair putty, they're going to be underneath. And what I can do now is just, you don't need to put too much pressure on. I'm going to rub away, and can you see where it's lifting, where the putty was? This is a wonderful kind of resist. Now, some people, when they're doing furniture or stuff like that, they'll use wax. There are different kinds of waxes, obviously, some better than others. But I think this clay works much better. If you can find some of that hair clay, then go for it every time. And there we are, so we did some on the inside there. I'm just taking that away. And this looks more realistic than if you were, some people like to add this rust effect afterwards. I don't think that looks genuine. I think that looks a bit contrived. But with this technique, it looks like weathered, rusted steel. So there we are, just check that I've got no more areas, just rub a little rub around. Nope, that should be it. How about that? Now, there is one more thing. There is one more thing. This is called, I can never get this right, quinacridone gold. This is wonderful stuff. It's kind of semi-transparent, but if you want to add streaks of rust, this is the stuff, it really is. And take a brush, just water it down slightly. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to work around these edges like so, as you would naturally with rust. And while that's still wet, I take my finger and just streak that down like that. Same here, some around there, just around these blobs, streak it down. So this would be kind of natural weathering. This would be what would happen where water comes into play and drips down the surface. I don't want it to be too harsh though, so I am going to take my spritzer. This is, give it a light spritz of water, maybe enough to make that actually drip down in places. There we are. You can always add more afterwards, should you wish. That's what I was going for. You can lift stuff, you can lift bits away, you can add. I'm going to come in with just a bit more around here, because this is what rusted tin would look like. It actually, the rust seeps out alongside where the metal is exposed. Lovely, lovely, lovely effect. And there we have it, almost done. One last thing, Distress Spray Stain. This is Picket Fence, and I'm just going to add, even when this is quite wet, just going to add a few blobs to that. You can see it spreading where the water is as well. It's kind of a neat effect. And again, you can go in with your tissue, just pick some of that off, help it blend in. Pretty neat. Now obviously, you know, you could do this with so many different shapes, not just a heart. That's what we've done today. But if I take this out of shot, just 1 second, and we'll bring in this lovely notebook. Here's one I made earlier, as they say, and I used some of that paint to actually drip down the front of the notebook, added some more of that stamp detail as well. That would make a lovely cover for a journal or anything like that, really. I've also got, now if you spray, now these were Christmas trees, this is the fir tree dye. There are 2 trees, different sizes, same shape, it's different size, and you get the star as well. Now I've sprayed these with silver metallic paint, so they look like tin. Now you can do the same effect. You can get chipped tin, and here are some that I made. A couple of Christmas trees. You can see I used a little bit of Bubbalux there to help stand them up, but that's a lovely effect, again using the Whoosh dye as well. And this is something for the mixed media fans. So I've put a couple on a wooden stand, just on cocktail skewers really, and you can see here there's 2 of the hearts. I've used the Mixed Media 6 collection. I've used some different stamps there, but where it's worn away, where it's been taken away over the top of the silver, it now looks like tin that has been chipped. I think that's a really neat technique. Thanks for watching. See you again soon.